to start by giving a brief about our group. So Sujan Industries has been, we've been in this space for the past 40 years. We're a manufacturing company. We were founded in 1978, and hence our two companies, Sujan Industries and Mega Rubber. We have been, in the aerospace, defense, rail, and the automotive industry. And in 2019, we started HUSE, with the idea of bringing all the new technologies under one roof, the sustainable approach of bringing all the sunrise industries and the sectors under one roof. So we classify our business in 4 categories, right? The electrification part of it, the mobility part of it, the connectivity, and the renewable and the recyclables part of it. So starting with the mobility part of it, we have our own division where we assemble and make electric bikes. We are in the wireless charging infrastructure space, where we also have energy storage, lithium refining. We have mobility as a service, where we are working on the last mile connectivity piece, right? So we have these bikes, the two-wheelers that are joining the dots, a sustainable and a cost-effective approach of helping people commute. Charging as a service is that I'm going to talk about, the wireless piece. And further to that, there are 2 other pieces. Reuse, right? We are trying to be as efficient with our approach towards a greener future. Floating solar is the technology that we have. It's an in-house technology where we're not talking about rooftop or ground-mounted solar, but we're talking about floating solar. And then we have the connectivity piece, which is servicing the supply chain and the logistics industry. So we are trying to get end-to-end visibility across all sectors of logistics, starting with rail and container. This is HUSE Electrion. Electrion is our technology partner. We are trying to work with them, and we are at a stage where we are ready to deploy pilots for wireless charging infrastructure. Just a quick glimpse on the initiative that India is taking towards adoption of electric vehicles and the charging infrastructure. The problem statement that I see is electric vehicles are definitely lucrative, right? But to increase adoption of electric vehicles, we have to give the consumers the advantage and the convenience to charge the vehicles while they're in transit. That's the biggest problem today. So the rate at which the EV sector is growing, unfortunately, doesn't meet the rate at which the charging infrastructure today grows. And for that, the Indian government, Shri Narendra Modi ji, and the entire team, they are working aggressively, bringing out schemes like the PME Bus Seva, which is to have 3,600 buses deployed. And going further, it's going to be a 50 to 60,000 crore project, where you're going to have 10,000 buses deployed soon enough, but within this decade. So I'll just jump right into our technology that we are trying to work on, and it's effectively proven in 16 project pilots across the world. So what we have is an above ground management unit, and we have it can be placed underneath the surface of the road as well, for convenience sake, to prevent any vandalism. Then what we have are receivers, which are integrated under the chassis of the vehicle, and transmitters, which go at approximately about 80 millimeters underneath the surface of the road, 80 to 100, based on convenience. And then you have a cloud management system, right? So the 2 ways in which an electric vehicle can charge with our infrastructure is a static and a dynamic way. So in a static way, the vehicle has to be parked in a certain slot where it wirelessly charges, and in a dynamic way, while it's in transit, you can charge the electric vehicle, right? This is the dynamic charging architecture, right? So you can electrify kilometers of road. The biggest project that has been currently completed is in Autobahn in Germany, where 40 to 45 kilometers of the road has been electrified with this technology, right? So you can deploy up to 500 kilowatt in about 100 meter span. So that's pretty cool. So your vehicle is on the move, and it charges, collects power. The power is coupled to the receivers, which are underneath the chassis. It's completely ergonomic, no changes made to the vehicle. Just an integration process that we follow, and then your vehicle is ready to comply with our technology system. This is the static charging infrastructure, where there's an above ground management unit that I've initially showed, and that unit basically can supply up to 360 kilowatt in power to about 12 transmitter coils, right? So based on the type of vehicle that's being charged, the arrangement of the receiver underneath the vehicle will change, right? So each transmitter coil is going to couple power at a rate of 30 kilowatt hours. And so based on the length of the vehicle, as we can see here, we can have X number of receivers underneath the vehicle, right? So that's how the static charging infrastructure works. So for something like a passenger vehicle, one above ground management unit is, it can readily charge up to 12 vehicles, right? That's a 1:12 ratio that we're talking about here, which no other technology or the conventional charging infrastructure doesn't provide. Just a quick process of how the entire thing works, right? So we have the charging management, right, which is in the EV. The charging management, it receives, so the moment the battery levels are low, the charging management receives that input. It provides a request, it sends a request to the receiver to activate, transfer of energy from the transmitter. The receiver then forwards this to the coil segments that are the transmitters underneath the surface of the road. And the transmitters then push forward the same request to the cloud system, right, which is integrated in the management unit. So the management unit is a smart management unit. So we're talking about a smart charging infrastructure. And this would validate the request, and there is wireless power transfer. So it works on the principle of AC, induction, wireless transfer. And we are talking about EMI flux, which is being coupled straight into the receiver, right? So we are not looking at a lot of hysteresis loss. We are not looking at a lot of, coupling losses the way that happens maybe in a conventional system, right? Or in a wired architecture. The integration is pretty simple. So these are the components that you will have to integrate within the vehicle. It's not a lot. So it's not an exhaustive process to integrate a receiver underneath the vehicle. Neither is it as simple as, just fit and forget. There is an integration process, but what we are happy to say today is our technology is agnostic to all vehicle specification, right? So you can talk about any buses, you can talk about passenger car market, and you can talk about trailer trucks, electric trailer trucks, and the technologies which it just works with everything. So it's agnostic to vendor specification. This is one of the opportunity charging proposal that we had worked on, where we thought that our technology fits right. It solves a very big problem in the opportunity charging that exists today in the public bus market, right? So every bus, in principle, does a certain route from point A to point B, and beyond the route, it kind of deviates on another track to be charged, which costs us time, costs us a lot of extra, range depletion on the battery. And this problem is something that we're trying to solve, right? So at scale. So when we're talking about a deployment of 10,000 buses aligned with the vision of our Prime Minister, we are trying to talk about 10,000 buses saving on that few, maybe 25 to 30 kilometers of range, and then optimize that entire thing for higher operational uptime. So a bus then goes from point A to point B, it charges at both the endpoints, and it repeats that cycle to and fro, and it essentially never runs out of charge. And this is just a quick working that we had done for a route in Mumbai, right? So this is Virar to Ambadi, it's in Mumbai, Maharashtra, right? So minimum frequency, so the kilometers needed is 326, and there is no electric bus that can suffice to the range requirement, right? And what we are trying to do is, with our technology, we are trying to say that a 7-minute terminal stop at 2 endpoints is going to help you suffice with that range. So that's pretty interesting, right? So you don't have to go off-route for separate depot charging. You don't have to go off-route to park in a separate slot to charge. This is how you can do it. Few of the key USPs that I would like to run through, uninterrupted operation, so operational uptime goes up. So let's say a bus can do a certain route maybe 4 times today with conventional charging means. We are trying to increase that depending on the range requirement for that route. No extra buses are needed, and no extra manpower is needed for that specific route, because now the bus can just do that route, and when it goes in for charging at the terminal points, right? So it's a quick millisecond process. So all you need to do is make sure the buses are parked right over the transmitter, and the transmitter is going to couple the power, right? So it's a simple process. Basically, you're mitigating the risk of range loss. So there's no range skepticality, which is the biggest problem today that prevents consumers and people from adopting electric vehicles. That's the biggest problem, because range anxiety exists, and we're solving that problem for you. At a low cost, right, compared to the existing cost of infrastructure. It's better for the grid, Because what happens is when we're talking about range requirement from buses at that scale, these buses are having 250, 300 kilowatt hour battery packs. To charge them using DC fast charger means you're asking the grid for a massive demand. So there's a massive demand on the grid at off-peak hours, right? So you're kind of cutting that off, because over here it's a balanced way of charging the entire bus. So it just stops at the terminal points. And when it does stop at the terminal points, you're just charging for 7 minutes. And in terms of dynamic charging, it's being charged while it's being moved. So you're not parking a lot of 10,000 buses, separately in different locations, charging at a speed of 350 kilowatt hour each. You can imagine the demand. It wouldn't be good for the health of the grid. The grid is going to have, it's not just going to work out, because the grid needs to be maintained, it needs to be regulated. So these are the kind of problems that we're solving. So the graph shows it for you. At night, you're going to have a peak curve, but with our technology, the entire graph is kind of flattened out, which is good for the grid. Quick and easy deployment, right? It's one of our key USPs. We can deploy a strip of over 100 meters over the night, and it's just these transmitting coils which are insulated, which need to be deployed at a depth of 80 millimeters, and you're ready to go by next morning. These are just a few projects that are active today, 16 global deployments as of yet. The largest of which being 4 in Germany, 1 in the Autobahn, which is 45-kilometer stretch of road being electrified. Yeah, so this is just a map of the number of places that we have completed the charging in. So Utah, California, Texas, these are ready working places where our technology is up and flying, it's operational. These are not POCs. So these are the deployments that have happened. And this is the status in Europe, right? So in Germany, you've got it in Italy, in France, in Finland. So, and the biggest question that somebody would ask here today is, how do you plan on deploying something like this in India? But the tests prove and our certifications prove that it can work in the most adverse conditions. There's no issue about anything of that sort. So it's completely doable. Just a quick go through of our certifications and standards. We are compliant with the SAE J2954 standard, which is the latest standard regulating and mandating the electric vehicle charging infrastructure body. So, the approval to sell commercial, to integrate with all the vehicles and everything complies under this. So we are kind of compatible with all the larger vehicles which have a higher requirement of power, and there is no obstruction or no barrier over here because we're compliant with the standard. Just a quick glimpse into our solar infrastructure. This was the second project that we were, we are working with NHEV on, and I'm glad that they've given us this opportunity. So floating solar infrastructure is much different from your conventional rooftop or ground-mounted, solar infrastructure, where this is a completely in-house technology of our own. The floaters are made by us, and all we need to do is find a static water body or a still water body, such as lakes, dams, and reservoirs, and we deploy the floaters on top of the surface, and the solar panels are kind of integrated with that, right? And because of that, you're kind of saving the land space that you would have used otherwise, and you're kind of saving the ecosystem of the water body, because now you're going to face lesser evaporation of water. So it's much better and much efficient for even farming and agriculture, because you're promoting that, and at the same time you're generating and harvesting cleaner and greener energy with the floating solar infrastructure. Just a quick differentiation between the two, traditional PV structures and floating PV structures, right? So, it doesn't hinder the surrounding land. Grid connection points are easily available, right? We just have to make sure that these panels are, they're maintained on a certain frequency with clean water, and they can work with more than about 40 to 50% efficiency. Not 40 to 50, I believe 20 to 25% more efficient than your regular solar panels. And it's really easy to kind of install these panels, right? So the integration process is completely easy. The deployment is quicker. So this is the value proposition that we offer with our floating solar infrastructure. Right, a layout design is would be selected by you, right, by the engineer, the owner who would like to deploy the infrastructure, and based on that, we are flexible to kind of design it for them. And the manufacturing is something that we do as per the design plan. And the testing happens. We've done our testing, the fair share of it, to ensure that the waves, the water levels, it stands, it's unaffected by any of those parameters, right? So we make sure to that. Yeah, so these are just some applications, like I mentioned, still a static water bodies. We talk about dams, reservoirs, drinking water lake, irrigation reservoir, backwaters, yeah, offshore. So yeah, these can be deployed. Even in port applications, we can find deployment use cases where you have certain sections of water bodies which are cordoned off from the port, but under the jurisdiction of the Port Authority. And you can deploy there to kind of generate clean green energy. So you don't have to use up the space on the land to kind of generate the same amount of energy or even better as you would have done over here. This is what the floater looks like, right? So, it's a main float plus a walkaway float plus an equipment float, right? And on top of these floaters, we deploy the solar panels, right? Today, we can deploy as much as you'd like. So if you tell us that, we want to deploy maybe like 100 megawatt, we can do that. If you say we can deploy maybe 10 to 20, we can do that. So there is no restriction on the amount of energy that can be harnessed using this technology, right? And there are anchoring and mooring instruments that are clamped onto the floaters that connect straight to the bed of the water body. These are some durability tests that we've done to ensure that it's not hampered by the ecosystem that it's being deployed in, right? So because it's polymeric, these floaters, they are designed, they're lightweight, they're pretty strong, they're durable in their application. So certain tests that we've done, braking tests that we've done, and so it just stands beautifully unmoved by any adverse circumstances that you may expect in a water body like a dam or a lake or anything that you can think of which is still in static. These are the anchoring concepts that we talk about, right? So the diagrams very well indicate how they're being anchored on so that they're least affected by the motion of the waves and the level of the water body, right? So you have a pillow floater, you have the anchors down there, and these are the links. So the links are going to connect every individual floater to each other, and hence you form an array, right? The pile anchor, and these are just different configurations, right? So based on the kind of infrastructure that we're deploying it in, the configurations can be aligned with that. And so you can see when it's being deployed, the anchors kind of help it stay being least affected by any movement laterally or along the x-axis or along the y-axis, right? So it's not, and I would say it's more efficient because the opening of the surface is far more, so it exposes a larger surface area of the photovoltaic cells as opposed to a rooftop or a ground mounted, because they are on an incline. So over here you're having a larger surface area exposed to the sunlight, hence better efficiency. So this is just a plant design, that we've developed by ourselves. It's in-house completely. So there's nothing that we are exporting from over here. It's an in-house thing that we're doing, and we've been market leaders in manufacturing for the past 40 years. And so I'm happy to also announce that we'll be completing our first project, which is about 1.4 megawatts over a 2.5 acre water parcel. Soon enough in Gujarat. So for the wireless charging piece, we are hoping that this could be a good anchor for the wireless charging piece to power up the infrastructure along the highways going forward for deployments. That video kind of properly demonstrates how it can adjust to the differentiating water levels, right? So that video does the job. So you can kind of see how it's least affected by the depleting levels of water. So when I'm saying that we're stopping evaporation, it's not like we're entirely stopping it, but there's a certain amount of evaporation that happens, and hence the water levels can tend to vary, and it's controlled. So in a reservoir, the levels of water are controlled. So deploying it in a place where the water levels are controlled is going to be much easier, and you're going to be able to harness more and more energy. That's the end of the presentation. I'd like to thank you all for giving me the chance to present, and Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.